Hey everybody, Jamie here. I just wanted to provide a follow-up video to the first video that I made regarding the replacement of cylinders 1 and 3 on my Lycoming engine that is attached to the front of my Piper 140. I know that some of you are maybe interested in some of the work that has to be done to it, and I did a lot of the work myself. I was going to try to video document all of this, but it turns out that it's really kind of a pain to video document something when you're all over the place and things are dirty and you're taking apart stuff and you don't know what you're doing and all this. So I decided to just take some photos and provide maybe a short video of my experience so that if any of you who are out there and you want to get your hands dirty with your engine and your mechanic, you'll at least have some kind of basis or some kind of benchmark of what you can expect. Now, that's exactly what this video was for. Please be aware that I am not a mechanic. This was the first time I had ever gotten my hands inside an engine at all on any kind of vehicle or machine, and it was always under the watchful eye of a mechanic or one of the assistant mechanics that works at Tradewind. And Ricky, Matt, Brad, Hunter, they were amazing in lending tools and their advice and supervision to me because I did a majority of the work myself. And considering how many hours it would have taken the mechanics to do it, and how much that would have cost, I can assure you that I saved a tremendous amount of money by doing the work myself. Now, luckily, I am at a field where the head maintenance, the A&P here, Ricky, is really very interested in having owners do assisted projects like this in their annuals, being, an owner assisted annual and projects like this, because it gets you in your airplane and it gets you to know your airplane. And I can't be more thankful to them and more grateful that they are for that, because I have learned a tremendous amount just in this one experience. And I feel like I know my airplane a lot better because I was involved in this. Was it frustrating and was it troublesome? Yes, because it was the first time I had ever done it, but I feel like I've learned a lot, and hopefully this video will provide you with a little bit of an expectation of what you can or what you can expect or what you can familiarize yourself with before. So please don't take this as any kind of instruction on how to fix anything. Just it's really just my experience. So there's my disclaimer. Okay, see your A&P if you have a big problem with your airplane, and if you let you work on it, then take that opportunity because it's really worth it. Okay, so here this is cylinder number one, and you can see here that the crack was significant. This is coming out of the exhaust port for number one, and strangely enough, this was almost identical in shape and size to the number three cylinder, and upon comparison, it was really eerie. The two four cylinders didn't have any cracks in them whatsoever. I don't know why that is, but one and three had cracks in them like this, and I replaced them. I was also very happy to see these ugly things go, because you could see that they were rusting and just, I don't know what was holding those on, but this is where the exhaust would come out, and it was kind of just looking very ugly. All right, so with this image right here, this is when the cylinders had been removed, and as you can see, the camshaft in there, or the crankshaft, that also would have pistons attached to it. Now, my mechanic had taken off the pistons because they're delicate and needed to check them out and clean them and sandblast them and make sure that they were good, and that was not something that I was comfortable doing, because if you drop something like that, it suddenly becomes quite unusable. So I was not going to be responsible for that, and they came back beautifully sandblasted. There's a lot of carbon actually on the front of them that probably was getting a little old, and it's kind of leading me to believe that perhaps if I get a little bit extra money, maybe overhaul the other two cylinders as well, or at least maybe open them up and clean the pistons, because it was looking pretty ugly. But as you can see, the right one here, the right one is very, very clean on the plating here, and that's what I was instructed to do by my mechanic, was to clean the plate and also the bolts around there so that they were nice and clean. As you can see, the comparison to the left side here, this is what it should look like when you get done. Now, all I did was just take some sandpaper and a wire brush and clean it all up here. And I think if you have a Dremel tool that has like a wire brush on it, or maybe some sort of moving like edge or moving, what would you say, like surface that cleans this a little bit easier, that might make things easier on you. I just use some sandpaper with a little wood stick or like a little wood block that could get in some of the nooks and crannies here and then clean that up really nice. These two down here are the oil drain intakes that put the oil from that comes through the cylinder and into the engine back down into the pan to be recycled. And those came out easily, and you can see these clamps here, they just kind of twist really easily. I don't think there's a tool that specifically does this. I just use some pliers to get them off. But this was nice and clean by the time I got done. And if I go back one, you could see that I did take almost everything off. I mean, I needed full access to this. I mean, this was not going to work unless I had full access. So I just took the baffling off, and in a couple pictures, you'll see how much of the baffling I took off. The alternator was right up front. Check that. Make sure it was that it was attached. Because sometimes these things are rolling around in there, and they just, I don't know. At the same time that I was in there, there was a Grumman that. The spinner was acting a little weird, and the prop was kind of acting a little bit weird. When they took the front off of it, the alternator was barely attached. It was flying all over the place. So I made sure that this was nice and tight. Over here, this is where the oil dipstick would go in, and I had to take that out so that everything was accessible. All right, so these were nice and clean when I got done. And this is a little bit of a close-up of what it looked like after and what it looked like before. So pretty good. When you are taking off these nuts, it is really important. The nuts. Let me show you. Let me get the next picture here. These nuts that go on those bolts that are on this, or that attach or affix the cylinder to the engine. You got to be careful if you do. I was told by my mechanic, because what was happening was these had a couple of one of this one actually had fused, and it was spinning, and this one apparently goes all the way through to the other side, and it started to actually disassemble from the other side. So I had to be very careful. They put some I don't know what they put on here. I think they put some agent on there that loosened it up, and they put some Loctite on the other side. And then the morning after, Ricky told me that he took it off, and it just popped right off, which is really good. So you have to be careful that uh, these do not fall out, the bolts themselves or the studs. Okay. Now the colors on this, it's very interesting. The color apparently means that it's a steel cylinder as opposed to orange. I think you see the orange over here, which means it's a chrome. I did not know that. Of course, I didn't know anything going into this, so pretty much everything I'm reporting is new to me. The tool that I had to use to get this, of course, is one of these little bent wrenches here. Kind of a pain, but it took a lot to get these things off. But you see the square here. You just put a little bit of a ratchet in there, and you twist it, and you twist it a quarter turn each time, and until they come off. So it's kind of a necessity there. You just simply can't get a ratchet in there, so you have to use one of those things, which was kind of interesting. And this is kind of the front view of the cylinders once they went on there. And as I mentioned before, what I did with these, like both the exhaust. This is the exhaust to cylinder 3, and this is the exhaust that would come over onto cylinder 1. And what he asked me to do is to also sandpaper the top of those. Now this is where those gaskets went that I mentioned that I had purchased, the no-blow gaskets. They were going to be put on top of those and then bolted up, and those worked wonderfully, and they fit great. And they bolted really nice. So that's where I had to put those, and you can see here that the cylinders are in really, really nice shape. They were nice and clean, and I hadn't assembled them yet, but this is right here. This is the intake. This is where it comes from the engine, like all your mixture and whatnot. So I had to take those pipes off too. And one of the things that I did want to mention on this particular item, actually, no, let me go back to this one. These seals right here are where the push rods go in, and there are tubes that cover them, and you have to be pretty careful with those because apparently they can dent really easily, and you don't want to do that. So the tubes and the push rods that go in there, these seals right here, they gave me new seals because these were old, so they gave me new ones. They're kind of nominal in cost. There's not really a lot associated with the cost of these, but they gave me new ones anyway. And we also put new seals on or gaskets in between here and tighten them down really nice with a torque wrench. Okay, so that worked out really nicely and gave me new seals. So the push rods go in there, and they kind of fly down here, and they go through these two little holes right here. And this is where, if you see these holes right here, this is where the rocker arms are going to go, and there's like a cylinder that goes through here that keeps them going. And I'll tell you, that is a project trying to get those rocker arms in there, and I'll show you when we get to a couple of the further pictures. Oh, here they are. Here are the rocker arms. These things, to get those in there, are a pain because these things under here are springs, and the rocker arm sits against that spring. So you kind of have to push that spring in and then get the rocker arm in there to push that cylinder through so that they are fixed in there. And this is really one heck of a job trying to get that. So what they do is I don't know if you can see it, but one of these screw holes where the plate goes on, he built a little kind of like a, I don't know what you would call it, like a, I don't know, a piece of strong metal with a hole in it that's bent like an L, and you put a screwdriver in there and you push in, like you use leverage to push in that spring, and then somebody else is going to take these rocker arms and they're just going to finagle with it to get it in a little bit, and then push it through, and then when it's good, it's good. Now the other one you do the same way. You just kind of this screw hole down here, you can see, you put it in there, and then you put the screwdriver in there, push that spring in, and then lock the rocker arm in there. Now, the reason why I took this picture is because this piece right here is something that apparently will keep the tubes. I don't know if you can see them, but these tubes right here, you can see I'm starting to assemble this already. These tubes right here, this little piece keeps those tubes from rattling around. And on the next image, uh, I was kind of curious as to what he was doing. It was kind of interesting. He put this little tab on there, and the tab is meant to keep the thing from coming off, and then he also bent the tab here to keep the nut from moving, which I thought was kind of interesting. So he had a neat technique for doing that. And let me see over here. The cylinders just were beautifully cleaned, and they looked really good going in. And when I got everything attached, one of the other things I wanted to show you was that. If I can zoom in here, I don't know how the fidelity of this picture is actually pretty good. I'm pretty impressed by it. But right here, this is where the oil will drip out, and that goes underneath to the little intake tubes that I have here. And this right here is going to be um, that right there is going to be what is that called? Oh God, the primer, right? The primer lead. So the primer that gets put into the top here, and right at this hole right there, okay, right at this hole right there, that needed to be plugged. So the cylinder, was plugged with like a screw that had an Allen wrench or like an Allen screw in there, and put that nice and tight because the cylinders, I think all the only cylinders that I have are that are primed are the 1, the 2, and the 4. This one doesn't have a primer for some reason, so I'm not quite sure exactly why that is. But whatever, it is what it is. But I plugged that up, and that was it with that. Okay, so there you go. There's a little bit of explanation of what's going on there, and also the rocker arms and the neat little way that he kind of closes off that nut there. And here is an image once I got everything back together again. Oh, I also wanted to show you. Yeah, back here. This is the baffling was coming around here on the front, so I just kind of folded it over. I just got that baffling right out of the way. You can see that it just took all of it off. And there's that little rod that comes out to hold the baffling on. And this hole right here, let me, now that I'm getting into this, I'm realizing that there are many things that I wanted to explain. Oops. And now I lost it. Yeah. All right. So right here, this hole right here, that holds a little metal piece that kind of shoots across here, and it holds part of the baffling on there, and then that little piece that I complained about that goes underneath, that's really hard to get at, affixes to this to kind of pull it nice and tight. So that right there has like 3 screws that go across that put the that hold the baffling on. So there's like this little metal piece in there. So that goes in there, and this right here affixes to the other side of that baffling and holds it in place. And this is kind of getting a little bit squirrely. That when I was looking at it, it looked a little bit rusted. So I think the next time I get in there, I might have them exchange that because it looked like it was getting a little bit weak as far as the metal was concerned. So there you go with that. And these right here are the new ignition leads that I got. This was a $500 little item here, and these ignition leads were not too difficult to put on. They come pre-made. You get the exact kind that you need. And of course, check with your mechanic about that. So I fixed those, and they torqued sparks in there, and then I just kind of put the leads on there. And you need two wrenches for this. You have to be able to hold this part with one wrench and then tighten it down with another wrench so that you don't twist the lead going in there. So this is kind of one of those. I don't know what they call it. Of course, I'm not really in on the technical jargon of what these things are, but you just needed two wrenches to make sure that one was held while the other one was being tightened down. And what I did was I made sure that they give you, for the 500 bucks, it's nice. They give you all the clamps that you need and some extra screws if you need them. And as you can see, I kind of wired it around so that basically there was really nothing touching anything else, and kind of using zip ties to keep it in place. And none of it was touching any of the exhaust or whatever. And I did find that this was a tremendous improvement on my radio, because the shielding is brand new on this. So the radio was much better with reception. So I thought this was the other side. This is the 2 and the 4 cylinders. So I got those all set, and I think that's it. So these other pictures I think are just yeah, these are just duplicates of that. So that's pretty much what I did. What you can expect as far as taking some of these things off and putting them back together again. It really was quite interesting. The tubes and the push rods that go into the rocker arms, and just putting everything back together was really tremendous. And learned how to put safety wire on, like the oil dipstick, and also on the prop when we put the prop back on. Learned how to put some safety wire on that, and the concept of what you're supposed to do with it, and the gauge that you're supposed to use, and all this other kind of stuff, and how much you're supposed to torque. I think it's like 280 to 300 for the prop bolts that go in there, and all that kind of stuff. So put all it back together. It wasn't really that hard. Turns out that with about 20 hours, maybe 20 to 25 hours of work, it's going to cost me less than $1,000 to have all this done. And that is the one benefit of taking all of that, under my own volition, just kind of deciding that I wanted to do that myself. So I think that if you are somewhat handy, it really behooves you to, to take a look at, doing the work yourself, because it's really not that difficult if you kind of have a concept of what's going on and you don't mind getting your hands dirty. So for, two new cylinders, and the work that's involved in it for less than $1,000, I don't think you can really beat that at any maintenance shop ever. You just got to find a couple of maintenance guys who are willing to let you do the work yourself. So there you go. So I hope that video was informative somewhat as to what you can expect if you happen to have this kind of project needing to be done on your airplane. And took me probably collectively, I would say, about 20 hours to do it, with the supervision of the mechanic, and putting everything back together. Actually was a lot easier than taking it apart, believe it or not. So the process of that, if anybody's interested, I can certainly uh, maybe have a discussion about what the process was, so that it makes it easier for you. But definitely one of the things you want to do is just take the whole cowling and the baffling off. Just take it all off, and you'll make your life a lot easier. Okay, so I hope this video was informative. I hope I kept it short enough so that you weren't bored. But that was pretty much it, and everything is back together. And as you can see, if you watched the other video, I ran it. I actually flew down to Myrtle Beach. Took me about 3.5 to 4 hours to get down and back. Stopped along the way in Wilmington and got some gas, so it was about maybe I think it was like 3.25 hours, 3.5 hours to get down and back, which is really not that bad to Myrtle Beach from here, considering it's like about 100 miles. And ran beautifully, ran smoothly. There wasn't one problem. A little bit of maybe spit inside the cowling when I opened it up, like underneath. If I go to this picture, like underneath on the cowling, there was just a little bit, but the mechanic said it was nothing to worry about. And some of it wasn't even in the engine, it was probably on the case. So did a good job of bolting those down. So I'll fly it a few more hours, and hopefully those, those rings in the pistons and the cylinders will seat a little bit, and I'll get some good compression. I got an annual in about a month, so I'm interested to see once I fly it for about another. I think I'd probably get another 5-10 hours flight time before my annual next month, and hopefully those things will have good compressions on them when we get them in there. But I'll be sure to report back, and yeah, happy flying. Thanks for watching.